Welcome to Madame Raven's. This way to the library. She's been expecting you.
My Husband, Dr. Death by MatgamarraAlt3. I married Thomas when we were both 28. In the January of 1990. We met a few years before at medical school, though I dropped it in order to become a veterinarian because I couldn't tolerate human suffering. My husband has always been a bit more cold, thus he was able to become a surgeon, even if he struggled at medical school for some time. The first clue I got was in 2010. Since we married, we have a tradition of traveling every spring. The target location this time was the medieval-like village of Óbidos, Portugal. We were scheduled to return in mid-April, but a volcano eruption in Iceland caused our flight to be postponed by almost a month. The Palmer's Hospital, where my husband works, said it was okay if we could not return in time, but Thomas was bizarrely anxious to return to the UK. He began sweating all the time, drinking, and would have stayed up the entire night, walking in circles in the living room. The worst time was when he spent an entire day crying on the couch. He kept telling me he was deeply sorry for everything and that he would make it right. I even thought he had some kind of fever, but he was not exactly calm, so I decided not to annoy him. The following day, Thomas was in the kitchen, covered in blood and with bruises and scratches all over his body, peacefully sleeping on the kitchen table. Tom told me he had gone for a walk in the park to clear his mind and was mugged. He resisted and the assailants spanked him and took his watch and wallet. I immediately suggested taking him to the hospital, but he reminded me he was a doctor and that he was fine. And if something was wrong, he would check it back in England. That was not the most appropriate thing to do when you're almost 50 and get beaten. But he assured me he would be fine, and I did not want to make him even more stressed. The weird thing is that he was way calmer after these events. Only a few times in my entire life had I seen him so happy. He even secretly postponed the travel by another week, and I only found out when I went to check how many miles awards we had collected through the years. I did not think much of it at all at the time, but now I know the whole story. I know what he did that night. The next suspicious thing happened in 2017. My husband suddenly was all nervous again, and after a night that he drank a bit too much. Tom told me a new hospital manager had been appointed at Palmer's and that she was on his tail, and he didn't want to get terminated. I asked him what the hell that meant, and he told me sometimes some people just have to go. Before he started rambling about football and the Manchester United. 1 month or two later, I asked about his new boss, and if she actually came after him. He said, "Which one?" Turns out the poor girl that was investigating the high mortality rate in his section died in a hit and run. In 2019, the answers began finally to reveal themselves. In an October Sunday, we went to a supper with our children and grandchildren at a Brazilian restaurant in Nottingham, and Tom ate a bit too much Toyota than he probably should, resulting in several stomach aches and a toilet visit throughout the next days. He was allowed a week off work and stayed home. On Friday afternoon, an old, fancy-dressed lady knocked on our door. I opened up and she introduced herself as Louise Cipher, representative of a lending agency, which Thomas had been hiring for decades. He had just exited the toilet when he saw her and was furious, saying things like, "You'd agreed to never come to my house," before he asked me to leave the room. I reluctantly agreed, but hid behind the door and continued listening to the conversation. The old woman apologized for coming here, but told him that the month's payment was not received yet, and that they were unable to contact him at the usual location. So the 7 members of the board decided to unanimously punish him by doubling his usual payment for 3 months. He apologized for not letting them know and broke down in tears trying to convince her not to increase the payments. But she said there wasn't anything she could do now. Before leaving, I went back into the living room and asked what the heck was that all about. Tom said, "Anne, I have indeed hired a legal agency to help me with medical school in the 80s. I pay them every month." "But Thomas, how have you not paid everything by now? It's been like 30 years and you always told me your parents paid for it." "It was very costly. They couldn't pay for it all. It's just a loan, nothing else." "I can help you, Tom. How much do you still owe them?" "Oh, for God's sake, Anne, please. It's fine. I don't need help." He picked himself up from the couch and stormed out of the house. Next week, he began arriving, way later than usual. I suspected he was working double shifts, something he used to do in the 90s when we didn't earn as much as today. However, he was not. After digging in his clothes, I discovered Tom was now working in another hospital located in Petersboro, also while working at Palmer's here in Boston. Now, I finally began to suspect there was something wrong about all of this. I looked for the records of a loan agency that employed Louise Cypher, but found nothing. I also found nothing on her, neither on Google or social media. Then I visited his father in Spalding Nursing Home, and he told me he had paid all of his son's expenses, as he had saved for years to do, and always intended for his only child to become a medical doctor. Also, I called the big lending agencies in the UK and local ones in Boston, and they all said he was not a client. Except for one, we took a loan to pay for a car in 2003, which did not employ any Louise. 3 weeks after Cypher's visit, a Sunday morning, I confronted Thomas. I told him I was certain he was owing money to the mafia or something similar, and that he'd better tell me what was going on or I would turn him in for the police. He tried to tell me the medical school bullshit, and I told him I'd already investigated the matter and wouldn't fall for his lies again. He began sobbing, took a deep breath, and told me, "Anne, I'm not who you think I am. If I tell you, you'll never look at me again." "Oh, for God's sake, Thomas, tell me what's going on. Who is Louise Cypher? How much do you owe them?" "This month's already paid, Anne." "Paid? What are you paying?" "For my abilities, Anne. I'm a fraud. I have no medical skills. I never had. They gave me them." "What are you talking about? Have you gone insane?" "Anne, I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you, but I was so afraid to do so." "Then do it." "When I was an infant, my parents wanted me to succeed at school and be a doctor. I don't have the skills or guts to be one, nor the patience and discipline to study, but I did not want to be disowned by my father. He saved money to pay for my university and pressed me for years. On one day, after I failed 4 tests in a row, at 6th form and was about to fail A-level, a man wearing a fancy suit approached me as I was drinking with a few friends in a pub. He burst into tears, and after a few seconds continued, He told me he could help me, and he did. I scored so good I was admitted to Cambridge, where I met you. Thanks to their help, I passed medical school. Thanks to their help, I got the job at Palmer's. Thanks to their help, I'm able to save lives every day. Thanks to their help, I impressed my father, gained my wife, and got my dream life. Please bear in mind how much happiness the deal brought us before you criticize me. But how do you pay them, and how exactly they helped? They helped you cheat? They bribed your teachers? How could they help? Anne, they whisper everything I need to know in my ear, and I pay them back every month. How much money have you been spending? $1 per month. But I've been fine, so I'm paying more until January. One what? One life. Before I was a doc, they allowed me to pay with some cats per month, but now it's humans. He stared onto the floor and closed his eyes, knowing what was to come. What? I almost fell to the floor, angry, sad, disappointed, and surprised at the same time. I've always disliked violence, but I slapped him with all my strength, even if I did not fully believe him yet. I'm sorry, Anne. For how long? Who are you killing? He sobbed as he answered, I've been killing my patients since 1988. I usually kill old people or babies. I'm friends with the mortician, so every day I go and help there. She never suspects some of them were killed by me, the poor girl. But Anne, most of them will die anyway. I try to kill only those who are too elderly or born with serious complications. Please, please, please tell me it's all a joke and that Louise is a friend. And it was always a prank. Please, Tom, please tell me that. I cried and screamed angrily at the same time. I'm sorry, Anne. He looked at me in the eye. Both of us crying. Just the sight of his pupils disgusted me. How many lives that monster took. I grabbed the kitchen knife and held it against my belly. Thomas, tell me the truth. Tell me, for the love of all that is holy, that you are pranking me. I beg you, tell me this is not. Tell me it's not what you told me. He just stared at the floor. I dropped the knife, ran out of the kitchen, and locked myself in the bedroom. I spent almost 2 days there, thinking about what I should or not do. I lost count of the times I almost called 999 or emailed the police or Balmer's hospital. I wrote hundreds of not sent messages, letters and emails for our children or friends asking for help, but ended up not doing anything. The following Monday, after he came back from work and dropped in the couch, obviously under the influence of alcohol, I approached him. Tom, what happens if you don't pay them? What? What happens if you don't pay them? Answer! Stop hiding things for once. They take me instead, or someone I love. They've done so once. What? My mother. When I was hired by Balmer's in '88, they told me to start feeding them human lives. Initially, I tried to negotiate, offered a few cats, begged them, didn't kill anyone. Mom was found shot in the back of her head. My father always assumed they killed her because she was a prosecutor specializing in corrupt companies. I know the truth. They did it, the devils. I stared at him angrily. I just discovered he put me and our children in danger this whole time. It's my fault they took her. I'm sorry. If I stop killing, they'll kill my entire family, then take me. If you want me to stop, I will need you to kill me. It's the only way. I won't try to stop you. We can plan to make it look like an accident. or like I drank too much and... Stop! I will not murder you. You can be a murderer, but I am not. That is the sole reason I quit medical school. I could not bring myself to harm people, even if it was for their own good. If you want to stop, you kill yourself. I won't do it. I'm not like you. Anne, I did it so. I don't need you to tell me. You are a coward. You murder people. You swore to care just so that you don't need to admit to your father that you failed him. You're not even a murderous monster, Thomas. You're just a pathetic fraud. This conversation happened almost a year ago. Things have changed a lot. I still like Thomas a bit, but I still couldn't bring myself to look him in the eye the same way I used to before, or sleep in the same bed as him. I felt guilty for not killing or renouncing him, but I am proud that I did not become the same thing he had. This year, the forgotten enemy of all doctors returned, and the plague hit. Tom was called to the medical battlefields of Nottingham in March. He told me he would be back soon. A week ago, I had just reopened my veterinary clinic when a young, fancy-suited man with a leashed hound entered. "Miss Aaron, I see your establishment started operating again. Are you new in town? You're not one of my usual clients. My dog has got no need for treatment, albeit your husband does." "What?" "Wait, who are you?" "My name is Louis Cypher. I represent a very old and well-reputed organization that has been helping people for millennia in exchange of certain specific and, one could say, morally ambiguous favors." "Oh, I see who you are now. You want me to kill the dogs I treat now, or train them to attack their owners, or run over people with my car? Not with this bluntness, surely. This is a deal we could both benefit. Dr. Thomas Aaron is right now being taken to the critical care unit of the Royal Hospital of Nottingham. We have a skilled medical professional in the area that will be able to save him. But, as you may know, every deed has a cost. More specifically, 3 animals per month. The 7 princes have deemed this payment enough." "Oh, is it so?" "Certainly, madam." "Then take your skilled doctors and your princes and shove them right up your ass." "I beg your pardon?" "Frick you! Get out of the office or I am calling 999. "But I don't understand. Thomas can be saved. So can my canine patients. Leave, now." Thomas died 3 days later. I regret nothing. So quoth this raven. This was a fun one, my darlings. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so kindly for stopping by my chateau, my darlings. It does mean so much to me. Please, if you have not subscribed, as many of you have not, please do so. Give me a like so I know what you would like to hear. And comment. I always love to read your comments. And special thanks to my Patreon and membership supporters. Ciao, darlings.